So I just want to start us off by introducing myself. Hi, I am Rachel Horn with the Filecoin team. Thank you all so much for being here today. This is the first in our master class series. The idea behind these sessions is to really help you jumpstart your projects, your tools, your apps, and everything you're building on the Filecoin network. We're really excited to see what you build, and we want to be here to support those projects. So today, we are thrilled to have with us Jimmy Lee Cake. He is the creator of Slate, which is a storage application and Filecoin network client that lets you store images, audio, video, data through a graphical user interface and an API. And he's here to show us how Slate works with Filecoin and IPFS. And he's going to give us a live coding demo. And he's also going to take questions. We want to make this as interactive as we can. The more questions you have, the better the projects are that you can build. So feel free to pop your questions into the Q&A box, and I will monitor that and interject when there's a moment to, and hopefully Cake can get through all these questions. I'm going to turn it over to Cake. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being part of this. I'm going to show a quick presentation, and then we'll get started with some live code. So thank you, Protocol Labs, for letting me do this. I work on something called Slate. And our team from around the world is working on a safe and open and customizable open storage system that's easy to use. And we're building on top of Filecoin. And I believe that Filecoin is going to be a revolutionary new infrastructure for everyone to build content addressed solutions on top of, and it's going to be really, really mind-blowing. So I'm really lucky to be one of the first people, I think, to show some application-related solutions in this space. And thank you guys for coming to check it out. And so one thing that's unique about Slate is that we're doing everything out in the open. So if you think about typical startups today, usually their process is closed source, a lot of internal documents. Everything that we do, from our team expectations to how we design, to how we delegate issues, is out in the open. And even all our mistakes are out in the open. And so this is really possible because Filecoin and Textile are also very open pieces of infrastructure. So I invite anyone here who is interested later, who wants to learn how we're building something on top of Filecoin, to maybe take the code, run with it, do whatever you want, to just kind of like lurk and join us. And I'm more than willing to answer questions later. Our team and contributors are from around the world. So right now, Pooja basically helped make this all possible. Horace, myself, Martina, Will, Tara, Jason, Daniel, Tiago, Mac, and Tom all constitute the core team right now for, and Colin, of course, all constitute the core team right now for Slate. And we take contributions from everywhere. So if you just want to come and help out and put your name on the software too, you're totally open to. So in today's session, I'm actually going to show you Slate so you can kind of see what it is, and we're going to get you an API key. And right now, anyone can do this. I don't mind if people come and try to abuse the service or do crazy things, but I'm going to show you guys what the release demo looks like. And I'm going to show you how to build a simple application using Slate to store your images on top of IPFS and Filecoin. And then we'll look at the Slate design system. We'll play around with Textile's Powergate, and then I'll have time for your questions. So Slate is right here. This is the GitHub repo. And you can see that in our issues, we talk about, as I said earlier, our team expectations are all out in the open. All the work that we're doing, everyone can see. So it's kind of a way to see how a team is building an app on top of Filecoin right now and some of the challenges that they face. We have an NPM module right here that I'll get into later. And other people are building on top of Filecoin in different ways. So here's a shout out to Jim Pick, who did his Lotus client workshop that works directly with the Go code. So it's something worth checking out later if you're interested. So if you go to slate.host right now, you can do this in your own browser too. You can see that you get this opening page. And I'm just going to walk through creating an account. So I'm going to say master class test, and the password, you guys can try to guess, I guess. I'm going to delete this account later anyway. And we'll create an account. Hopefully nothing bad happens. Cool. So creating an account was really simple. If I want to go and I want to update my information, I can go here, pick an avatar, and I'll go into my folder called, actually I'll go into my Dropbox. This is my personal Dropbox, sorry about that. And I'll go into assets materials, and I'll go into avatars, and I'll pick this cool photo of a dog. And hopefully that works. It's the same dog, actually. I'll create a slate. So this is our fun test slate. Cool. And every slate has a public URL. So if I click this URL, it's a blank screen right now. If I go to our slate screen, it's blank. And I want to add a whole bunch of images. So this is from a day at the beach. I'm going to just drag and drop. And this kind of shows that it's really simple just to put things on IPFS. You know, I think with new infrastructure today, there's always like this mental block that we have that, you know, like it's really hard to use these new things. But, you know, in Slate, it takes about under 30 seconds to kind of just start uploading files. And so here we are uploading files directly to, through Textiles buckets straight to IPFS. I'm going to answer this question like, what identity systems does Slate use? Slate will have its own. So we're going to build our own identity system and key management system. Sorry, this is taking a little bit longer than expected. This actually might be a good time for me to go to the Slate issues, create a new issue. And let's see, feature, make uploads happen in parallel. And then we'll make this for the public if anyone wants to take it on. Cool, I'll go back to Slate. We're almost done. Cool, so all of these images are now on Slate. And if you go here and we refresh this page, you can see all these pictures here. And I'm gonna post this right into, yeah, so you can visit this URL if you want to and check that out. So doing it programmatically is very useful if you want to build an application. So we'll go over to API. And generate an API key. And right when you generate an API key, you'll be given some light documentation with the API key already in it, and then some API routes that you can use to build a really simple Slate application. And that's what we'll get into next. Let me check the, so in the Q&A, Pooja asks, this is awesome. Does Slate already have Filecoin integration or plan to have Filecoin integration soon? If yes, is the Filecoin integration through Textile buckets or some other stack? And so Textile currently is our partner that makes a lot of this possible. And Powergate is going to be introduced into the hub soon. So right now, Powergate's a standalone service. And so in Slate right now, you can make a Powergate deal to store files on the Filecoin network. But for testing purposes, before our official launch, we're using a different tech stack. So some of our CIDs, content IDs are localized to our stack. And so they're not available from Textile bucket to upload to the Filecoin network. In the future, I'll probably demonstrate for everyone a means to go straight to the Filecoin network from whatever you have in Slate. Cool, so now that we have this, let's pull up a development environment. So I kind of cheated and went ahead and created a a base repo called example. If you guys want to see it, you can go to Slate React System and on GitHub, and you can go to this example folder and you can see a really basic starter repo. And this one uses emotions for styling, but you can use anything you want to style components. So this right here, this example, I think if you can understand what you see here, you can get started really quickly. And we can also come up with a more simple example later in the future if people would like. So on Slate, I had generated an API key. So this will be useful. So let's just take this. And this is really bad practice. Like, no one should put API keys in the client. But since this is just a little instruction demo, I'm doing it now. But in the future, you probably want to tuck these keys away in a .m file, or use environment variables, or use something else to make sure that no one else can see this key. So I'm just going to add this here. API key equals this. Make it a string. Cool. Hit save. And then I'm just going to change this hey to make sure that our local environment is changing. So that's changing appropriately. And yeah, so to do basic file uploads in the browser, what you want to do is you want to just basically create an input type file. And on change, you want to write a little handler. So I'll do handle upload. And we want to use arrow functions here because we want to preserve the scope of this to the class, so we can access this here. Yes, absolutely. So that repo is right here, and you can see the example. Yeah, my Zoom screen hides some of the buttons. Oh, there's chat. Okay, awesome. Kumar, great question. So we actually use textile buckets for your avatar. So your avatar just gets added to your buckets, and it's actually in the data view. So if you go to your Slate account, you can see right here, this smaller image was actually the avatar I just uploaded. And I can demonstrate it again. So if I go over to my account and I change my avatar again, and let's say I pick a different dog. Cool. And then if I go over to my home, I can see that that avatar is right here. Hopefully that answers your question. Cool. So to do an upload, I'll just show you guys the shape of this. If I just console log E, and I go back to here, and I hit refresh. Hey, choose file, no file chosen. This is the default styling around a input field that has a type of file. And if you click choose file, because I binded the onChange handler, this shows up. If I click any of these dog photos, I hit open, I'll get a synthetic event. And this event has the information about the file. So I think React requires you to do an e.persist. So I'll do that. Cool. So now that we have this, people are probably wondering, well, okay, I got a file with I can just look that up on the docs. How do I actually use this with Slate? And the way you do that is you go here. I'll go back to our API section. And let's just make sure we can get all the slates first. So I'll make this call, and I'm just going to put this into a lifecycle method from React called component did. And if you're using React hooks, you'll probably use like use effect instead. But I feel like this is easier for beginners to understand. Like the verbiage here is a little bit easier, so I'm using it this way. So it's an async method that's being called in here. So we'll do async component did mount. Awesome. And here is a feature right here if you want your private slates. So slates right here, they can all become public or private. You can change the privacy of them. So cool. We have this. And if I just go into my browser and I hit refresh, says it failed to fetch. Uh-oh, that's not good. No cores allowed. Okay, well, that's not good. That isn't great. So I need to set up cores on my example application to make this work. And I usually do that by, I'll just do this live. So let's figure this out real quickly. Maybe I can do it unfiltered. So.
Cake, while you're building, I would love to hear, you can put it in the chat what people are building or how they think they'd use Slate. Just get the wheels turning, I'm curious.
Yeah, so you can use Slate basically to manage all of this locally. And so I'm surprised that this happened. And right now I'm going to debug this problem. And so let me see. 1 second. Let me check the source code for Slate. And I'll go over to Pages, API. I'll go into V1 and I go into Get. And so Get should accept this cores right here. And so that is weird, that's not working. And if I go into the index file here, or let me see if we go into server, I'm not doing anything crazy. So I'm very confused right now. What's going on? Let's see if I can try. Okay, I'm in Slate. I'm in Slate React System. I'm in the package.json. I'm going to try this out. Let's see if this works. Here. All right. Okay. So head back here.
And Cake, Slate, Anmol asks if he can use Slate to have his own personal Google Drive. Is the content stored on IPFS and how are they private?
Right now, if it's content address, if someone has a CID, they'll be able to view the content if they have the CID. But we allow for, at least on the Slate side, for things to be private so no one can see what CID is uploaded to the network. And also in the future, Slate will have a offline mode where all your files that are local and private won't even appear on the network. And yes, the buckets do encrypt content automatically before you are uploading into IPFS. Well, it's not even making that call. Wait, fetch, post. authorization, response.json, cheese. Request mode to no cores. Well, that's super embarrassing. So I actually don't know exactly what's going on, maybe something with my local environment, but I'm actually gonna switch over to doing something else that I think won't have any issues. So I'm gonna start from scratch and just work from our Slate design system. So sorry about that. I'm pretty sure that if I encountered this issue, someone else probably will, and that's really unfortunate. So instead of debugging this, I'm actually going to show people how they can use Textile Powergate directly. So we have this design system here called the Slate design system. And in my NPM modules here already, I already have something called Textile Powergate client, and I have the Slate React system already installed. So if I wanted to create a token right now to work with Powergate, and Powergate's our way of interacting with the Filecoin network, creating Filecoin addresses, and sending funds between Filecoin addresses, I do it here. So I'm gonna click on create token, because that's what you need to That's interesting. I'm just gonna do it locally. So if I go to my peers list or create token here, I have this component that one person in our community made. And so I can actually just take this code right here, copy and paste it. And I can delete this. I'm not gonna use this anymore. I can also delete this. And I'm going to create a Powergate instance. And this is our hosted Powergate, so anyone can use this to follow this example. And I'm going to use this React component as such, copy and paste. And I'm going to do create token right here. I'm just going to copy and paste this. And if I hit refresh, I'll see this component right here. And let me add a console log statement to this token, just so you can all see it. I'm going to create a new Powergate token. And cool. So with this token right here that I console log, I can do a lot of the Powergate features. So if I go here to something else like creating a Filecoin address, for example, I can just take this component and I can follow this example. So I'll take this method right here, handle create address. And what we'll want to do as well is
Another question in the chat for you from Philippe, asking, along the lines of Google Drive features, can roles permissions be assigned to addressable content?
I actually, I actually don't know if roles and permissions besides addressable content. I think you can store a lot of information within a CID. So when you pull a CID from the network and you decrypt it, there's a lot of stuff that can be there. I think that we could build other systems to manage that information, but it can be, you can have that kind of information stored inside there. Also, whoever's accessing your information, as long as they have a way to decrypt those keys, and that might be the way that you handle permissions. So there's a lot of ways you can do it, but out of the box, I think it's more on the user to manage what they upload to the network and how that's managed, not so much responsibility towards IPFS itself. So cool. So we have this right here to create an address, Powergate set token. We have the token and response. And then I'm just going to add this component here. Handle create address, handle create address. If I go back here, it's not defined. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I get this here. Cool. And we can hide this until we have a token. So this dot state dot token. Remove this extra semicolon here. So now that we have these two components here, we can go through this whole flow. So I'm going to get a token, and then I'm going to set the token, and then I'm going to create an address. And so generate a Powergate token, I'm going to call it test address, call it BLS. I'll make this one default. I'll create address, and boom, I have a new Filecoin address. And the other thing you're probably wondering is, well, okay, having a Filecoin address, that's just, I need to keep track of that. This isn't like a complete example. So what I can also do from here is I can get the information of my balances. So what we can do here is add a Filecoin wallet balances component. So let's see, add this here. Take this, put it here. Null. Take this component. Here. And then cool. And from this point, when I create a Powergate token, and I type in an address name, create an address, works. This, delete. Ah.
Jimmy, tell us a little bit more about what you're building now.
So I'm teaching people how to use Powergate, which is how we interact with the Filecoin network. And so right now in Slate, in the project itself, we currently use Powergate and buckets to interact with the Filecoin, to interact with IPFS and Filecoin. So what I'm giving an example now is basically how to use that Powergate token outside of Slate, but using Slate components to create a really simple application that can send and receive Filecoin. So right here, I can generate a Powergate token, and from here, I can also call this .handle refresh. And whenever I refresh the screen and I generate a Powergate token, I get now a balance component. And this balance component comes from our Filecoin balances list. So you can see kind of like what addresses you created, and kind of demonstrate this happens in basically just 61 lines of code, something that's super simple to do and pretty straightforward, and you don't have to worry about any of the cross-origin issues that we faced earlier with the Slate API. It just kind of works out of the box. And so right now, I've basically created a really simple example of how you can generate a Powergate token, you can create a Filecoin address, and you can refresh the screen to see the address created. And I can also add more to this. So I can create, we didn't save the token here. So let me go here real quick and make sure that we save the token. And you might use something else like local storage or a member variable to save this token. But we have a token here, we have the information here, and we can create Powergate token, create an address name, hello, create an address, and then we hit refresh, and now we have two addresses. And we can make another one, another example, and create an address. And we can hit refresh, and now we have three. So it's really easy to create Filecoin addresses here. And then you're probably wondering how you can send Filecoin between address to address and how easy that is. So I can show you guys how to plug in the component that we have in our design system, which is this one right here, to send Filecoin between two addresses. So I'll copy and paste this method here. I'll click copy and paste this here. And this can only happen when you have info. And let's see. Cool, so that should just work. Cool. Awesome, so now we have a way to send Filecoin between two addresses. So I can just create another one, example send. Create the address, I can refresh, there's two. And now if I want to send Filecoin between this one and this one, and right now the amounts are 0 because it hasn't updated, but maybe in a few moments the balance will update. Let me answer this question. How can Slate help in building Dapp? I am building one using Ethereum. And so I think Slate can help you with some type of like storage of CIDs. So if you're storing any data, Slate can help make it really easy by just providing you a single token or your libp2p token that you're using when you create a Slate account. And with that, you can basically have a way to manage like files and storage. Let's see if we have balances. And it looks like these accounts that are created don't have any Filecoin. So I'm used to these accounts having a ton of play Filecoin, so we can show an example of this working, but it looks like it's not, it's not populating with Filecoin. So yeah, I'm really sorry about how some of the technical issues kind of got in the way of seeing the Slate API and using it to store assets, but that's kind of a full preview of, you know, the design system that we have that lets you kind of create a Filecoin application, making a storage deal, creating a token, having a peers list. And then we have a whole bunch of components here that we're going to add on that people can contribute to, and people have been adding all sorts of fun things. Like, for example, this is a hover tile that people can play with just for like building attractive applications. And so, yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to show you guys. I'm available for any questions. Mike asks, can I pull Slate components into a project without Powergate? And the answer is yes, you totally can. So you can take any of the Slate components and use them even without Powergate. If you have a different backend that does a similar thing, that works too. Well, I guess. So when you go to your Slate account, so I'll make a new account here. Actually, I have this account here. I'm just going to show an example of basically you have this account. You can delete this account, get rid of it, start over. And let's say my test account. Cool. So I'm in my Slate account that I made just now, and I have a Slate, and I want to create one new one, new test Slate. And I have here this API, so you can generate a Slate key. And then you can just follow documentation here to create a to add things to a Slate and to get Slate by ID. So earlier this broke, but I have an idea actually to try to demonstrate this working through a different means. So if you bear with me. So I actually think I can get this working from this angle. So what I'm going to do now is, because my earlier example didn't work, I'm actually going to do it again. But this is kind of cheating because I'm actually working within my local environment that actually hosts Slate. And I'm going to show an example of the API key working in this context. And then when I get the example of the API key working with Course, anyone can use that to kind of store images and assets. So going to Slate, this is the Slate project repo. If I go into my V1 folder here, and I go into this folder here, I have a folder called test. And this is where I test basic things like the API and etc. And so if I go here and I get to my Slate API key, this is the one I generated, and I put this here, and I just swap this in. And all I want to do here is basically get one of my slates. So I'm going to delete this code. And I'm going to refresh this page. Cool. So that worked without any problems. And basically, if I delete all these components here, this is an example of using the API key. I can get a slate with an ID, and it has 0 objects right now, which is true. So if I add something to my slate, and I go here and I drag and drop this image, test image 10, you can see this picture exists. And then if I go over to my test environment and I do an API request, I can see that this slate exists here, this asset. And in the response, if I just save the response, so I can go and do this dot set state, and I can add in the response slates, json.slates, and I can do this dot console log, this dot state dot slates, and I can do state slates empty array. If I hit refresh,
Hey, Cake Philippe has a question for you.
sure.
As it relates to Dapp, is there a way to abstract away users from Dapp from having to pre-own Filecoin, similar to a feature Kadena is working on with their smart contract gas stations?
So relates to Dapp, is there a way to abstract away users of the Dapp from having to pre-own Filecoin? Could you elaborate a little bit more on this question, Philippe? I don't quite understand it. And if I go here, this dot state dot slates dot data dot objects dot map image turn. We're just going to do image dot, what is it, URL. See. Slates data objects. This is slates data objects. There we have the URL. Sorry that took so long. CRC, and now just render an image. That's way too big, so let's go and make it smaller. Cool. So as you can see, sorry about that. As I get my slate using my API key, and I save that slate as local state, I can render the images directly from that. So if I go here and I add another image, cool, so I have two images here. When I go to my local environment, I can see that when I make a request, there's two images here. And there's a lot you can do with the CSS here. Let's say I wanted to change this to make them all square. So I can do CSS styles object, I can do background style, background, image, URL. I can bind the object URL here. I can go and do this. I can do const styles objects. I can do background size, cover, background position, 50%, height 200 pixels, width 200 pixels, and margin 24, display inline block. And this should render a whole bunch of squares. So we can keep doing this. We can add more images over. So I'll add some of these.
Cake, there's a question about integrating other identity systems with Slate.
Yes, so that is totally the plan. Like we have a plan with Slate to basically support SDKs. So Slate is great at hosting storage for people's keys. So if someone wants to have an integration with Slate, they can just have there will be a way to integrate other identities and share identity, and also for them to communicate in the future. Felipe, that's a great question. You asked, in the case of a picture Dapp, for example, where users can upload and store pictures on IPFS, can the transaction fees to store those files be paid managed by the Dapp developer instead of the user? I'm asking this in an onboarding context for those users who may not be familiar with technology and a barrier for not having the coin. I actually think that with Slate, we will probably try a model where people are able to pay for additional storage in Slate using fiat or USD, and in that way, they don't have to deal with having Filecoin or using Filecoin for payment. It's still very much up in the air, but it's a possibility of what we play with. I do agree that it is a barrier for people who are not familiar with having the coin or dealing with dApps in general and dealing with keys. And so Slate, its intention is to make it easier for developers and for people who aren't used to dApps to kind of easily manage everything with something they're more familiar with, just like spending cash using a Stripe like checkout, for example. Cool, so in this example, I uploaded a few more images, and then you can see right here that all these images render. So this was the example of what I was trying to show you guys earlier with how easy it is to basically, you know, with your API key in some other code to make an API request to basically just get your slates, and you can render them out any way you like. You can, you know, play with CSS and make your own web pages using the content that you have on IPFS. And to take the example even further, I think what I should do now is show you guys with an input type of file and an onChange handler, this.handle change. This will render a button to top of the screen right here, choose file. And from here, we can actually go and take the event. And we can look at our Slate documentation here in the API section. And we can upload data as so here by copying and pasting this. And so we have our URL, and I'm going to change this actually to just this relative URL because I'm cheating in this example. I'm using my local server, which doesn't have any issues, of course. I'm taking the file here. I'm adding it to form data, so it's a form multi-part request. I have my API key. I'm passing the body, in the body, the data from the form data, and I'm going to get a response here in JSON. And so this needs to be an async function. And from here, we should be able to add a file to our Slate. So I'm gonna go back to my local example here. And I'm going to And let's get rid of this, this key issue. So this is not the best practice, but that's okay. Key object.url. And I'm going to upload a file. Let's try to add a dog, one of these. A4. It said that it uploaded, it worked. And so if I go to my Slate here, and I go to new test Slate, the image is here. The dog was uploaded, but it wasn't added to my Slate. I didn't include, oh, it was, sorry, my bad. Basically, if you have a Slate, it will add it automatically. But you can also specify in the API the exact API key. And so here's the API key of the Slate that we were using. And then here's the API key for your Slate account. So in our example here, if I hit refresh, you should see a dog. And so it should be that simple to basically create something that stores and retrieves your assets. And yeah, that's pretty much a full overview of the Slate API. Sorry about all the thrash. I made a lot of mistakes along the way this time, but I was able to show everyone, I think, a basic example of Textile's Powergate, where you can use that to interact with the Filecoin network. And Slate uses the same technology, so you can work alongside us and see our examples. And I also was able to show you guys an example of how to use the Slate API to view your images, add an image like this one right here, and then also go into our GUI and see that the image is available right here as well. And if I delete this object, and I go back to my screen here, it will not appear. So removing content from IPFS is just simple as adding it. Thanks for watching me thrash about in my IDE. And yeah, if you guys have any questions for me about Slate or how to participate in the implementation, I'm pretty sure like I could learn a lot from you guys. And yeah, thanks for participating.